Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ episode 90, the series where I answer all, or at least some of your questions, whether they're sharp or dull. And this week, we're looking at some ugly knives, but are they still charming? Some lunchbox knives, you'll see what I mean in a little bit, and we're going to answer the question of which Switchblade did I buy from the previous week's video. Let's get into it. All right, everyone, welcome to the video. If you are unfamiliar, what you do is leave your questions down in the comments section below. If it's got anything to do with the subject of knives, and maybe even some things that don't. Every once in a while, we'll throw one of those in there. But leave them down there. We'll comb through and pick out some good ones for inclusion in future episodes. This week, if you folks didn't catch it, on Tuesday, Thomas and I, we pulled a bunch of automatic knives from the warehouse over there, and I kind of went through and picked one out that I was going to purchase. And part of the reason I kind of wanted to do that video is, you know, I was looking for an everyday carry automatic knife, something that was going to be utilitarian for me. Because I think automatic knives get a bit of a bad rap, even from amongst people in the knife world, not just the outsiders looking in. They think it's, you know, it's unnecessary, it's just scary, it's only a weapon, which they get a bit of a bad rap. And really, a spring actuated blade is just one other way to open a knife. And they're not even always the fastest way to open a knife, if that's what the objection is. I mean, you can't tell me that, you know, a modern flipper is any slower than the automatic knives that are out there. It's just one of those stigmas that needs to go away, because it's a pointless distinction when there are so many other options that are perfectly legal and perfectly acceptable out there. So I wanted to do it from that perspective. And I narrowed it down to these four at the end. We have the SogTac AU, a very nice knife using their XR lock mechanism. Very thin, slicey blade as well. Also, we've got the Benchmade CLA, which is just a fantastic little shape. It handles very nicely. It's got a neutral feel, very balanced blade shape. Perfect for me for EDC. It's exactly the sort of thing I look for. And two OTFs as well. We've got the Hogue Compound with the G10 frame and S30V blade, and we've got the Guardian Tactical Recon 35 with an LMAX blade. Both also very cool knives. The reason, because so many people couldn't believe that I put the ProTech and the Microtech out of contention, part of that was, you know, I was literally feeling what was in front of me and what were my hands responding to the best. And also, I already own a couple Microtechs and a ProTech automatic, so didn't need to own a third in any of those cases. So, but we also asked you folks to participate in the poll, which one you think I would buy. And so I'm looking at the results right now. We're filming this earlier in the week, so by the time this video rolls up, the results may have shifted a little bit. With 1.8 thousand votes, the Benchmade CLA is leading with 34%, followed by the SogTac AU at 25%, the Recon 35 at 21%, and the Hogue Compound at 20%. So those are your predictions. And it's funny because the two leading are the side openers, and I decided not to go with a side opener. And I'll tell you why here. You know, the CLA, wonderful knife, like I just said. But the steel selection here, 154 cm, perfectly serviceable.
Vocab.
Perfectly serviceable stuff, don't get me wrong, but there were some other options here on the table. That's not why I picked it, or didn't pick it though. Mainly I picked the OTF because of that ease of closing. I mean, you folks know I'm a big fan of the crossbar lock, and it takes something like this, like that OTF, to kind of equal the same convenience that I get to enjoy with a crossbar locking knife, even though this Benchmade closes pretty easily for a side opening automatic. Likewise with the SogTac AU. It has a crossbar lock, essentially, with a spring mechanism attached. Is easy to close, but this is where I think day to day I would get in trouble. I'm so used to this locking mechanism. I would have the knife out, I'd do my slice, and I would try to close it by doing this. And it wouldn't work for me. One time, yeah, there we go. You can do it if you really flick it, but I feel like that would actually trip me up more often than not, so I didn't want to go that way either. So that leaves us with two. We have the Hogue and the Guardian Tactical. I think I would have been perfectly happier with either of these knives, but in the end, these are knives first, right? And to me, it always comes down to edge geometry. I'm not using either of these as, a balls to the wall tactical knife. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for an everyday carry. And the Hogue, not only does it come with thinner blade stock, it also comes with a higher grind than the Guardian Tactical. This thing is just going to slice better. I've had plenty of S30V blades in my collection over the years, not as many LMAX, so while it would be cool to kind of experience a new steel, in the end, that actual cutting geometry is going to make more of a difference. And I just love the feel in the hand of this too. It's not as neutral looking as the Guardian Tactical, but it also doesn't get in the way, for me anyway, for my hand size. The other kind of thing that swayed me is I can close this knife with my index finger a little bit easier than the Guardian Tactical. And that's down to the switch shape, which, as much as I love this switch shape on the Guardian Tactical, when using the thumb, it doesn't quite work in that orientation. You may think, hey, what's the big deal? I have actually found myself using that closing method with this knife because I've been using this a little bit now. If I'm doing any kind of cut reversed, anything like this, it's actually real easy to orient and close with that index finger. And you've got a nice spot here on the front of the handle for your thumb to keep it from sliding forward in that regard. And even that little bit works for the index finger as well. I'm typically a fan of things with subtle finger guards on them, so I have a little bit of that there. And then I could choke up if I needed to. But yeah, in the end, I went with the Hogue, and I am going to carry this, have been carrying this already. I think it's a great knife. They're doing a great job. And even though it received the fewest votes in the poll, it's like you guys don't even know me or something.
The knife that is last in the poll shall be first in the pocket.
Proverbs. Thomas, behind the camera.
Edge Geometry, Chapter 3.
Edge geometry is really it, like geometry cuts, and that's what you want. Also, I love a stone-washed finish. You folks know that too, over a black coating. So
Apparently not enough people knew that.
Apparently not. Well, the CLA was leading. And to be fair, if this were an Axis lock knife, or even, well, maybe an Axis auto, I did have my qualms with the SOG from that regard, but if this were an Axis lock knife, I would own one right now, because it is, I can't fault them too much, because this is right up my alley in terms of profile. So, good on you, but you were all wrong, except for the 20% of you that were right. So I hope that was fun. Maybe we'll do some more things like that video in the future. But yeah, hope you folks enjoyed it. All right, now on to the first proper question for today, which comes from Knife Guy 2112. It is said that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That being said, what, in your opinion, are some of the more ugly knives that have some unexplainable charm to them? My pick is the Spyderco Yojimbo 2. I could see that. For me, let's see here. Let me make sure I have my tab open properly here. I think one of the things that frequently gets this accusation thrown at it is the Ontario Rat 1. KnifeCenter exclusive version right here with micarta handle scales and a D2 blade. I mean, this is not a pretty knife, but it is a knife that works. And if you can appreciate the charm of something that is just made to work without really a consideration paid to its aesthetics, there's a charm in that. The same can be said for, a lot of people have leveled that accusation at various Spydercos over the world. I mean, even, I think it was Eric Glesser himself relayed the story where they design with the lights out is the way they like to describe the way they work their designs out, because it's all about how it feels and how it works, not necessarily about how it looks. I'm sure they actually do have the lights on when they're sketching things out, but it's an expression.
Sounds like a NOSHA violation.
It probably would be. Anyway, Another knife that I think hits this for me, and this hits a personal note, because it's another knife that I have recently purchased myself, that is the Tactile Knife Company Rockwall. It's a $300 knife, and it's not something that like jumps off the page, so to speak. It is well made, extremely well made, and extremely well put together, but it doesn't have a ton of personality. That said, I kept coming back to this knife. I kept holding it, appreciating the utilitarian nature of it, and it does have a more highly refined character to it overall. Just wish it had maybe just a little bit more personality maybe, but it won me over. Despite having tons of things that catch my eye as we do all these videos from week to week, this thing is just excellent. To give you an idea how excellent, I bought this to kind of fill the niche of my my gentleman's carry, something I might carry if I'm wearing a suit or a little more dressed up, a little more of a formal occasion where I still want to carry a knife. Two of my go-tos for a while now have been my Sebenza 21, my small Sebenza with Cocobolo inlays. Although I say this every time, I always forget whether it's actually Cocobolo or Bacote, but brown wood inlays. Have one of those, fantastic, classy knife. My Ziba MS3 also fills that role. I think this one is going to displace both of those. I really do. I'm not blowing smoke about this, even though it is kind of plain, but plain in a way like an old school jackknife is, you know, old school pocket knife, unassuming, but when it's done to this level with Magna Cut steel too, which is a nice bonus, this is a really hard knife for me to ignore. So I wanted to bring it back up to you folks' attention as well. It definitely has a lot of charm if you know to look a little bit closer at it, I would say. Check it out. Next question, Daniel Kobzev. Hey DCA, what do you think about detent slip joint knives? Thanks. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with the detent joint or the flip joint or the double detent knife, whatever you want to call it, because they typically take a little bit less pressure, sometimes a lot less pressure for the blade to close, even than a traditional slip joint. So for me, a lot of them I could honestly leave. They're not my bag. I would rather have something with a lock or an actual traditional back spring. The detent joint knives that where I think they shine and where I think there's a lot of value or a lot of worth to them existing is something like this small RKO from Artisan Cutlery, another KnifeCenter exclusive pattern I should mention. Even though it does have this secondary locking pin that you can insert behind the tang of the blade to keep it open or closed, even without it, I want a detent joint knife to have some kind of passive safety measure involved. And in this case, it is this flipper tab right here. So that if you're cutting, if the blade starts to move, your finger's gonna keep it from moving further. To me, I think that is very important for this style of knife. I think it also works really well on a Wharncliffe or sheepsfoot style blade, like this Mod Wharncliffe you see here, because it keeps the angle of pressure, if you're using this to pierce, pointed more into the spine. It can still close on you if you are doing something like that, but it's a little bit less likely than if you have an upswept tip. Great knife. You got S35 VN on this particular one. Marbled carbon fiber comes in about 120 bucks. And you have the convenience of a non-locking flipper. I mean, you can open it just as quick as anything here. It's quicker than the SOG and the Benchmade automatics we just looked at. And this is a non-locking knife. And you can flick it closed, no problem too. But open up, make your cut, flick it closed. If you really want to, you've got that secondary pin. It can live here. You could throw that on your keychain if you like, so you've got it handy, but it's not in the way of the knife itself. That's where I think the detent joint style knife really shines and really makes a justification for themselves. All right, next question comes from Marv Thomas. I'm thinking of trading in my Delica for a slightly larger knife, and I've decided to go with the Endela, but which steel? All right, cool. I talked about steel a little bit a couple episodes ago because it's such a broad subject, and this is a perfect example of kind of the tool set or the mindset I was trying to convey in that video, which is once you learn kind of where a few benchmarks are, especially if they're a steel you've personally experienced, preferably if it's a steel you've personally experienced, you can start to evaluate the differences between the existing steels in a range. And fortunately for the Endela, readily available, there's only 3 steels to look at right now. So it's easy to kind of comparatively, compared within themselves, which one's gonna be better at which thing. So let's start. Let's look at the Endela. It's a really cool knife. It's honestly, it's maybe not quite as successful as I thought it was going to be when they first released it, but it's kind of that perfect in-between size between the Delica and the Endura. And in fact, so many knives, new knife releases these days, if they're not one of those sub 3-inch blades, are kind of about this size. We've got a 3.4-inch blade and a roomy enough handle. It's just right size. If you want a stainless steel, you've got essentially one option right now. There may be some sprint runs out there, or some dealer exclusives that might be different, but in terms of readily available right now, you've got VG10. So if you want a stainless blade, go with that. VG10 is not the latest and greatest, but it's a really nice steel. It's got a decent grain structure, sharpens up really easily, and works pretty darn well. You've got better edge retention than a lot of the entry-level steels still. It's a good mid-range workhorse, absolutely. If edge retention is king, like if you want the most edge retention that you can get, easy answer here as well. The K390 version. This comes in about 141 bucks. The base model, 92 and some change. K390 is phenomenal stuff. I have used one of these, I've used a Delica in this steel and it just keeps going and going and going. However, it is not a stainless steel, so you're gonna have to keep that in mind. Funny story, I actually accidentally ran my K390 Delica through the washing machine in the pocket of a pair of shorts. Surprisingly, it came out fine. No pitting, no discoloration. I was kind of gobsmacked. So, I don't know why I'm telling you this, it doesn't further any point.
Your mileage may vary.
Your mileage may certainly vary, because this is not a stainless steel. And actually Seth V over there has a stretch in K390 that he's used quite extensively. It's got a really good patina going. Speaking of patina, the third option right now is our KnifeCenter exclusive in Packwood handles with a laminated blade with a HAP 40 core. It's a powder metal tool steel. It is non-stainless. The edge is not going to last as long as the K390, but it should probably last a little bit longer than that VG10, I would say. It's also easy to sharpen. It'll also patina. The reason you might choose this one may or may not be based on the steel in this case, because it kind of sits in a bit of that middle ground, which again could be, it's either leaves you flat or it's like that just right bowl of soup. But if you want something that has a nicer set of handles than the injection molded lightweight models, this, as far as I know, is the only version of the Endela out there with full liners and solid single piece scales right there. Packwood is laminated, of course, so it is essentially stabilized. It's not going to warp or crack to the same extent that unstabilized wood will or can, but you have that nice vibe, which pairs up nicely when it starts to patina as well. But it's got all the other stuff that makes the Endela great, and a lot of Spydercos great. 4-position pocket clip, mid-mounted backlock with that boy dent. No lanyard hole on this particular one, so keep that in mind. But another fantastic option, available right now for about $170 at this point in time. So hope that helps. Stainless, go with VG10. More edge retention, go with the K390. The HAP 40, good edge retention, not stainless, a little bit tougher, which could be good on the edge of that steel itself. The stability there could be a little helpful. Hope that helps. All right, next we come to our measured once, cut twice segment. From Carl K says, regarding the moving thought process, where I was talking about the moving knives last week's Knife AQ series, why not a fixed blade, especially with concerns of reliability? Respectfully, carry your EDC and keep unpacked a utility knife and don't overthink it. Certainly good options. A lot of folks suggested the utility knife, just a folding box cutter essentially, as the option. And the reason I didn't go with this, and maybe I should have been more clear about this from the beginning, was because everything was getting packed up, this was not just going to be the moving knife, it was also going to be the the EDC knife for the intervening period. So I didn't want to go with just a box cutter. I was thinking like what EDC would work for that. And fixed blade, honestly, that's a real fair suggestion. I don't have what I would have carried here on me today because still packed up my Nordsmith skipjack, but the new MKM macro that just dropped earlier this week would have been great. Got enough rigidity, or you got enough of a grip there for a solid hold. You don't have to worry pretty much at all about any kind of reliability issues because you don't have any springs or pivots or folding mechanisms to wear out, and you've got good edge retention here with M390. The reason I probably wouldn't have picked my pocket fixed blade, again, because this is going to be the EDC, I'm not pulling out a fixed blade just for the moving portion, is the speed thing I was talking about. It does take a little bit more of a deliberate action to resheath this, especially in a pocket sheath, versus, well, I only have one crossbar lock here. I talked about flicking my bug out blade open, making a cut, flicking it closed, and keeping it in hand while moving a box around to cut the other side of it. It's a lot easier, a lot quicker to do with the folder in that case. So good points though, and I wanted to highlight that pocket fixed blade is certainly a good option for something like that. Thanks so much. All right, now we come to the lightning round. Werner 0 or Werner O. It's probably
Werner Ott?
No, it's not 0. Hey DC, I'm looking for a cheap and strong pocket knife that I can use and abuse, and it won't hurt a lot to replace when I snap off the point or ruin it otherwise. Dozier may be obvious, but I would prefer a flipper. Any other suggestions? Yes. What about the Pilar Large from CRKT? It's about 35 bucks for the stainless steel frame lock version. If you want G10 on front, I think it's another $5 or so. You got your flipper, which works great. You've got a nice strong lock. You've got something like you're talking about being abusive or indiscriminate in its use. You've got thicker blade stock here for a bit more strength, and you've got a more robust tip than something like the Dozier or some other designs out there. So maybe they'll give you a little more of a fighting chance, make it last a little bit longer for you. Good work knife right there for sure. All right, next question comes from Black Hogarth. I sharpen my blades to hair-splitting edges, but after one pass through cardboard, they lose their sharpness. They're still kind of sharp, but they will no longer shave arm hair. This happens regardless of steel type, 20CV, M390, which is the same thing, S35VN, the result is the same. Do I have unrealistic expectations, or is paying more for superior steels pointless? This is one of those questions, we get questions about, I'm sharpening and I can't do this. It's hard to diagnose this through text on the internet, unfortunately, without actually seeing your sharpening process, what you're doing. But to me, it almost sounds like you still have that wire edge. And what I mean by that is you've got the tiniest hint of burr essentially left when you're done sharpening. If you're not stropping after you're done sharpening right now, I would recommend doing that because that'll knock that wire edge burr off. The thing with those wire edges is they're crazy sharp. Like hair splitting, no problem. They feel sharp under your fingertip, but as soon as you run it through something, it's gonna snap off and you're not gonna have a sharp edge anymore. Can I say for certain that's what's happening here? Again, no, because of the caveat there at the beginning, but that's kind of what it sounds like. If you have a wire edge, even on an expensive steel, one cut through cardboard, it's not gonna feel sharp anymore. Hope that helps. Jamie Paradise has our next question. Can you recommend a budget-friendly knife for carrying in a lunchbox and a more expensive fancy pants recommendation? Slicing fruit, sandwiches, avocados, etc. Sure thing, Opinel number 12. This is right now a $26 knife. And while the handle is certainly more than you're gonna need, the blade here, 4 3/4 inches, is actually pretty appropriately sized for a like a utilitarian, like kitchen utility knife. You can get it in stainless or carbon, super thin blade, super thin edges, full flat grind. Ooh, very nice option right here. You can get a little bit smaller one too if the number 12 is a little too much for you. And for the fancy boy, Liang Ma Cuff V2 is the fanciest one we have in stock at this moment, even though the V4 is a little bit bigger. 415 bucks though, so definitely the fancy pants recommendation. Titanium, carbon fiber inlays, top flipper, M390 steel, and your offset, so your little bit of kitchen-y cutting board type of stuff. It's gonna work well in the hand, doing exactly what you were asking for. All right, now that brings us to our final question, the most serious question of the day, which comes from lack of response. Actually, is he like trolling me with that? Like daring me to respond?
Seems like plenty of response there.
I don't even look at people's names. Oh, that's a good question. I'll take that one, please. What knife would you recommend for attaching to one of those little robot vacuum cleaners for home defense? Okay, it needs to be said that this answer is for entertainment purposes only. This should not be taken or construed as any sort of actual or actionable advice. However, I'm reminded of the image floating around the internet of your Roomba. We can use a brand name, it's fine. With the Claymore mine attached to the top. You have Claymore Roomba. So it goes to reason that we should add the Benchmade Claymore to said robot cleaning device. And maybe if you've got like smart home stuff rigged up, maybe if that can control the robot himself, and maybe if you can actuate a little servo, hook that up to your home defense. You click a couple buttons, or even set up an automated process where when it goes into battle mode, you have the little servo press down and blade is ready for action. That's, huh?
I'm thinking they're probably going to avoid the warranty on the robot.
Oh, most definitely. Oh, most definitely. That's one option, but then I started thinking a little more. You've created a war robot, so why not the steel wheel warbot? You're not going to be able to actuate the push button with your smart home, but I mean, it is a warbot after all, and that's what you've done here. You heathen, you. Anyway, that is all we have for today. Make sure to leave your questions down in the comments and we'll pick out some good ones for a future episode. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, we'll have links in the description that will take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And don't forget about our Knife Rewards program, because if you're going to be buying one of these knives today, don't you want to be earning some free money for your next one? I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. We're signing off. See you next time.
I'm Skynet, and I approve this message.
Let's go.